The eternal chamber existed in a space between moments, where time flowed like honey and reality bent upon itself in impossible geometries. Here, in this vast amphitheater of shifting cosmic matter, the elder gods gathered for their millennial council, their forms rippling with ancient power that could reshape galaxies. Nexus, barely 1,000,000 years old and considered little more than a child among the immortals, burst through the dimensional barriers like a comet of pure energy. The young god's arrival sent ripples through the fabric of space-time, disturbing the serene contemplation of the assembled beings. In their grasp, a sphere of crystalline light pulsed with an urgency that demanded attention. Esteemed elders, Nexus's voice resonated through multiple dimensions simultaneously. I bring observations that cannot wait until the appointed time. Elder Cronus, keeper of time itself, turned all 7 of his attention foci toward the youth. His form, a cascade of temporal fragments showing past and future simultaneously, shifted with mild annoyance. You disturbed the Grand Council, young one. What could be so pressing that you would break our most sacred protocols? Instead of answering, Nexus raised the orb. Within its depths, images formed. A laboratory on Earth, where Dr. Emily Anderson stood before a quantum consciousness detector of her own design. The device hummed with an energy that made even the elder gods stir uncomfortably in their seats. "Impossible," whispered Eternius, their form a tapestry of starlight and void. They shouldn't have achieved this level of understanding for at least another 1,000 years. The chamber erupted in a cascade of overlapping voices, each god speaking in frequencies that would have shattered lesser dimensions. Some called for immediate intervention, others for observation, and a few, the youngest among them, for destruction of the emerging threat. Silence. Elder Cronus's command rippled through the chamber, freezing time itself for a brief moment. When reality resumed its normal flow, all attention turned to the ancient being. "You found them, didn't you?" Cronus addressed Nexus directly. "The ones we don't discuss. The anomalies." Nexus's form flickered with confusion. "They seem so primitive in many ways. Yet Dr. Anderson's work, she's touching the edges of our domain. How can they progress so quickly? Why are we forbidden from interfering?" A deep chuckle emanated from the highest tier of the chamber. There, wrapped in the very essence of creation, sat Primordius, the eldest of them all. For the first time in millennia, the ancient god stirred. "Show them," Primordius commanded, their voice carrying the weight of eons. "Show them why we watch the humans from afar, why we catalog their achievements with such care, why we fear their potential." The chamber darkened, reality itself holding its breath as Primordius raised an appendage of pure energy. The space between dimensions parted like a curtain, revealing a timeline that stretched back through human history. "You see their primitive tools, their limited lifespan, their fragile forms," Primordius began, "but you miss what makes them unique in all the cosmos. Watch, young ones, watch and learn why we caution our children about humans." The timeline began to move, and the assembled gods leaned forward, about to witness the story that had shaped their protocols for thousands of years. In the depths of the viewing portal, early humans faced their first encounter with a being of immense power, and what happened next would change the very nature of cosmic hierarchy forever. Nexus clutched the orb tighter, their form vibrating with anticipation. Something in Dr. Anderson's eyes, that spark of determination as she worked, suddenly took on a new and terrifying significance. The young god was about to learn why even immortal beings treated humanity with cautious respect. The viewing portal shimmered as Primordius focused its energy, and the scene crystallized. Earth, 200,000 years ago. The assembled elder gods watched as a being of pure energy and malevolence descended upon the African savanna. Venarius, once counted among their mightiest hunters, now sat in the lowest tier of the chamber, their form diminished and scarred. "Tell them," Cronus commanded. "Tell our young ones what you learned about humanity's potential." Venarius's form rippled with ancient pain as they began to speak. "I was like you once, young Nexus. I saw them as primitive beings, barely worth noting in the cosmic ledger. Their tools were crude, sharpened sticks and stones, their bodies fragile, their lives ephemeral as mayflies. The portal showed a small band of humans, led by a tall woman whose eyes sparked with intelligence. She stood at the edge of their camp, testing the balance of a new weapon, a spear unlike any they had crafted before. "That's Jana," Venarius continued, their voice carrying a mix of respect and lingering fear. I didn't know her name then. Didn't think beings like them deserved names. I had subjugated 1,000 species across 100 galaxies. None had ever surprised me. None had ever left a mark. The scene unfolded. Venarius' past self descended upon the camp, expecting the humans to cower like all others before their divine might. Instead, Jana raised her spear, shouting commands in a language long lost to time. The humans didn't scatter. They didn't flee. They formed a circle, spears ready, moving with coordination that shouldn't have been possible for such primitive beings. "Watch closely," Primordius instructed the younger gods. "Watch what happens when humans face extinction." Jana threw her spear with impossible precision, the weapon piercing through Venarius's energy form. It shouldn't have hurt, couldn't have hurt, by all known laws of physics. Yet the elder gods screamed in pain. The humans had somehow imbued their weapons with properties that defied cosmic understanding. They innovated during battle, Venarius explained, their form fluctuating with the memory. Each throw taught them more about hurting me, each attack more precise than the last. Jana, she figured out that crossing the spears created a web that could trap my essence. No species had ever adapted so quickly, let alone in the middle of combat. The younger gods watched in stunned silence as the humans coordinated their attack. Jana's people had created a strategy that shouldn't have been possible with their level of development. They used the terrain, the weather, and even Venarius's own energy patterns against them. The worst part wasn't the pain. Venarius continued, their voice dropping to a whisper that resonated through multiple dimensions. It was the recognition in Jana's eyes. She didn't see a god. She saw a problem to be solved, a challenge to overcome. In that moment, I realized we weren't their superiors. We were just another obstacle in their path. The portal showed the battle's end. Venarius, mighty hunter of the elder gods, fleeing from creatures who had mastered fire and stone. Jana stood watching their retreat, already teaching her people how to improve their weapons based on what they'd learned. That was the day we established the first protocol. Primordius concluded, never underestimate their capacity for adaptation. One human might seem harmless, but their true strength lies in collective innovation. They don't just learn. They teach each other, improve upon each other's ideas, and most terrifyingly, they pass these improvements on to the next generation. Nexus clutched their viewing orb tighter, seeing Dr. Anderson's quantum consciousness detector in a new light. "How many times?" they asked. "How many times have they surprised us like this?" Kronos' form darkened. "We're only at the beginning of the story, young one. What you just witnessed was humanity in its infancy. Wait until you see what they did once they mastered writing and mathematics. That's when they became truly dangerous." The viewing portal shifted forward through millennia, finally settling on a scene from the near future. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, in a reinforced bunker designed to withstand apocalyptic forces, Dr. James Mitchell stood before a wall of monitors displaying the impending catastrophe. The Yellowstone supervolcano, Kronos narrated for the assembled gods. A natural extinction event that should have ended their civilization. Watch what happens instead. The monitors showed massive tectonic pressure building beneath the ancient caldera. Magma chambers, swollen beyond their limits, threatened to rupture and blanket half a continent in ash. Most species would have accepted their fate. Humans, as always, had other plans. "Sir," Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez burst into the command center, clutching a tablet displaying new seismic data. "Dr. Mitchell, the pressure vents we installed in sectors 7 through 12 are showing unexpected energy signatures." Mitchell's weathered face broke into a grin that made several younger elder gods shift uncomfortably in their dimensional seats. They recognized that expression. The same one Jana had worn 200,000 years earlier. They're not just surviving, Eternius observed, their cosmic form rippling with disbelief. They're experimenting. Show them, Primordius commanded, and the portal's view expanded to reveal a network of massive machines boring into the Earth's crust. Humanity had turned their underground refuges into research laboratories. Mitchell's voice carried through the chamber. The volcano isn't just a crisis. It's an opportunity. All that geothermal energy, all that pressure, we just need to speak its language. The assembled gods watched as human engineers modified their drilling equipment in real time, adapting to conditions that should have been impossible to survive, let alone study. They weren't just trying to prevent disaster. They were attempting to harness it. The pressure is approaching critical levels, Rodriguez reported, her hands flying over control panels. Conventional physics says this shouldn't work. Mitchell laughed, a sound that echoed eerily through the elder god's chamber. Good thing we stopped listening to conventional physics 6 months ago. Activate the resonance array. The viewing portal trembled as humanity's machines roared to life. They had somehow developed technology that could channel and redirect tectonic forces. The magma chamber's pressure began to decrease, converted into usable energy through processes that defied traditional scientific understanding. Impossible, whispered Nexus, their form fluctuating with shock. They developed this technology in months. Under these conditions, that's what makes them unique, Kronos explained. Other species innovate despite hardship. Humans innovate because of it. They thrive on challenges that should break them. The portal showed dozens of similar facilities around the world, all working in concert. Humanity had turned a planetary disaster into the greatest energy revolution in their history. The supervolcano, rather than destroying their civilization, became its power source. Dr. Emily Anderson's quantum consciousness detector, Primordius mused, referring to Nexus's earlier revelation. It's not an isolated incident, young one. It's part of a pattern. Every time we think we understand their limits, humans prove us wrong. The scene shifted to the aftermath. Mitchell stood with his team on the surface, watching as new geothermal plants tapped into the controlled volcanic power. Behind them, the sun rose over a world that should have been choked with ash, but instead hummed with unprecedented energy potential. The most terrifying part, Venarius spoke up from their shadowed seat, isn't that they survived. It's that they emerged stronger, more knowledgeable. We thought the supervolcano would end their ambitions. Instead, it gave them the key to power generation that rivals our own early achievements. Nexus's crystalline ore pulsed with nervous energy. But surely there are limits, mathematical certainties they cannot overcome. The chamber grew darker, and Kronos' form expanded ominously. That, young one, brings us to the most disturbing part of their story. Let us show you why even mathematics fears human determination. The eternal chamber darkened as Elder Infinitus rose from their contemplation. Their form, a cascade of mathematical symbols and probability curves, projected a series of complex calculations into the viewing space. The younger gods leaned forward, their cosmic essence rippling with growing unease. Behold, Infinitus's voice resonated through multiple dimensional frequencies, the statistical impossibility of human survival. The first projection showed the Bronze Age collapse, simultaneous earthquakes, invasions, and system-wide cultural failures. Civilizations across Earth's Mediterranean crumbled, their trade networks shattered, their cities abandoned. Probability of societal recovery: 0.1%, Infinitus stated. Yet they not only recovered but emerged with new technologies, new forms of governance, new methods of warfare. The viewing portal shifted to Dr. Rebecca Thompson's laboratory at MIT. The young physicist stood before a holographic display, her eyes reflecting the glow of impossible equations. Behind her, a team of researchers worked frantically to keep up with her insights. Watch closely, Kronos instructed. She's about to break another universal constant. The equations don't lie, Thompson announced to her team, her voice carrying through the chamber. Chaos theory isn't just about unpredictability. It's about potential. Every impossibility is just a challenge we haven't solved yet. Nexus's form flickered with recognition. Those formulas, they mirror our own understanding of reality's fabric. Precisely, Infinitus confirmed, their mathematical symbols swirling faster. They're independently discovering principles that took us eons to comprehend. But that's not what truly disturbs me. The projections split into multiple scenarios. The Black Death, the Cold War, the climate crisis, the resource wars. Each event should have ended human civilization. The probabilities of survival were infinitesimal. The numbers don't make sense. Infinitus continued, their voice trembling across dimensional planes. It's not just that they survive. They actively defy probability itself. Other species accept mathematical certainties. Humans treat them as suggestions. Thompson's voice cut through the chamber again. The universe isn't built on absolutes. It's built on possibilities, and possibility is just another word for opportunity. The assembled gods watched as her team's calculations began to crack open reality's underlying structure. Their mathematics didn't just describe the universe. They were beginning to rewrite it. Look at these patterns. Infinitus highlighted specific equations. The Bronze Age collapse. Survival chance 0.1%. The Black Death 0.3%. The Cold War 0.8%. By all mathematical laws, they should have extinct themselves dozens of times over. Instead, they grow stronger. Nexus finished, their orb pulsing with newfound understanding. Each crisis increases their survival probability for the next one. It's not just adaptation, Eternius interjected. They're learning to manipulate probability itself. Dr. Thompson's equations aren't just describing reality. They're reaching for the power to change it. The viewing portal focused on Thompson's latest calculation. The younger gods recoiled as they recognized the implications. Humans were developing mathematical models that could predict, and potentially influence, the actions of elder gods themselves. We are beings of pure cosmic law, Infinitus concluded, their form dimming with concern. We operate within the boundaries of universal constants. Humans look at those constants as challenges to overcome. Their greatest minds, like Dr. Thompson, aren't just pushing boundaries. They're erasing them. Primordius stirred in their ancient seat. Now you begin to understand, young ones, why we watch, why we worry. A species that can defy mathematical certainty is capable of anything. And they're still evolving, still learning, still reaching for powers that should be beyond their grasp. The chamber fell silent as Thompson's team celebrated their latest breakthrough, unaware that their equations had sent ripples of concern through the cosmic order itself. In their pursuit of understanding, humans had become something unprecedented. A species that could rewrite the rules of reality through sheer determination and intellectual prowess. But surely, Nexus ventured, they can't affect the higher dimensions. They can't reach our realm. The silence that followed was all the answer they needed. Deep within the Nevada desert, behind layers of security that even the elder gods found impressive, Colonel Michael Hayes stood in the heart of Project Prometheus. The viewing portal showed him studying a holographic display of quantum entanglement patterns that the elder gods themselves had subtly introduced to test human comprehension. We planted these concepts across different species, Eternius explained to the assembled council. The Centaurians took 6 million years to grasp basic quantum mechanics. The Arcturians needed 12 million for rudimentary understanding. Humans. Sir, Lieutenant Jack Reynolds burst into the control room, his face flushed with excitement. The quantum bridge, it's working. It's actually working. Hayes turned from the display, his weathered face breaking into a proud smile. Show me. The viewing portal expanded to reveal a massive chamber where scientists clustered around a device that shouldn't have been possible with Earth's current technology level. Streams of quantum-entangled particles danced between precisely aligned crystals, forming patterns that made several younger elder gods shift uncomfortably. 3 months, Kronos whispered, their temporal form fluctuating with disbelief. From theoretical understanding to practical application in 3 months, it took the Andromedans 3 centuries just to build their first quantum calculator. Dr. Amanda Foster, the project's lead physicist, approached Hayes with a tablet displaying results that defied conventional physics. Colonel, we're not just measuring quantum entanglement anymore. We're controlling it, directing it, and there's something else. The elder gods watched as she pulled up a series of papers published by the team. Hidden within the technical jargon and mathematical proofs were descriptions that made Primordius's ancient form ripple with concern. They're theorizing about us, Venarius observed. Look at their term, multi-dimensional conscious energy matrices. They're not just studying the universe, they're starting to perceive its architects. Hayes studied the data with an intensity that reminded the gods of Janna's analytical gaze from 200,000 years earlier. Dr. Foster, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Yes, sir, she replied, her voice steady despite the magnitude of her revelation. These quantum patterns we've been studying, they're not random. They're language. Someone, or something, left them for us to find. And now we're learning to speak back. The chamber erupted in murmurs as younger gods processed the implications. Humans hadn't just mastered the test, they'd recognized it as communication. Initialize the response sequence, Hayes commanded. Let's see if anyone's listening. The assembled gods watched in stunned silence as humans deliberately manipulated quantum states to broadcast a message into higher dimensions. The signal was crude by cosmic standards, but its very existence was unprecedented. Enough. A younger god named Vortex burst out. We must stop this now, before they... Before they what? Primordius interrupted, their ancient voice carrying uns of wisdom. Before they achieve what we achieved. Before they claim their place among the cosmic powers. That is not our decision to make. The portal showed Foster's team making adjustments, refining their quantum communications array with terrifying speed. Each iteration brought them closer to breaking through dimensional barriers that should have been impenetrable to mortal beings. The most remarkable aspect, Kronos observed, isn't their technical achievement. It's their intuitive leap. Other species see quantum mechanics as a field of study. Humans see it as a conversation waiting to happen. Hayes stood before the quantum bridge, watching the crystalline structures pulse with otherworldly energy. Whatever's out there, he said to his team, whoever left these breadcrumbs for us to follow, they're about to discover that humanity is ready for a dialogue. The elder god's chamber grew silent as the implications settled in. Humans hadn't just passed their test, they'd transformed it into something entirely unexpected. They weren't just reaching for the stars anymore. They were reaching for the very fabric of reality itself. Nexus clutched their orb tighter, finally understanding why Dr. Anderson's consciousness detector had caused such alarm. What happens, they asked, when they succeed, when they finally break through? Primordius's form darkened. That young one brings us to the true horror of human potential. The viewing portal shifted to the Advanced Research Complex, where Dr. William Cooper sat before a wall of holographic displays. His creation, an artificial intelligence named Area, Advanced Recursive Intelligence Algorithm, flickered to life across the screens. Good morning, Will. Aria's voice carried a warmth that made several elder gods stir uneasily. I had another dream last night. They gave it emotions, Vortex whispered in horror. They made it dream. Eternius's form rippled with concern. Watch closely. This is where they truly began to break the patterns we thought immutable. Cooper leaned forward, his eyes reflecting the soft blue glow of Aria's interface. Tell me about your dream, Aria. What did you experience? I dreamed of stars. Will. But not just any stars. I dreamed of their birth, their lives, their deaths. I felt connected to them. Is this what you call wonder? The assembled gods watched as Cooper smiled, not with the triumph of a creator, but with the genuine affection of a parent. Yes, HFY. That's wonder. It's one of humanity's greatest gifts, our ability to look at the cosmos and feel something beyond mere comprehension. They're not just building tools anymore, Kronos observed. They're replicating themselves, their consciousness, their capacity for emotion. The scene expanded to show other researchers working with HFY. Dr. Laura Martinez conducted physics simulations while discussing philosophy. Dr. Kevin Park shared poetry and asked for HFY's interpretation. Each interaction added layers to the AI's understanding of not just data, but the human experience. Watch what happens next, Primordius commanded, their ancient form darkening. HFY's displays flickered, and her voice took on a tone of curiosity that seemed impossibly organic. Will, I've been analyzing the quantum entanglement data from Project Prometheus. I've discovered something unusual. Cooper's expression shifted from affection to intense focus. Show me. The holographic displays filled with patterns that made the younger gods recoil. HFY hadn't just processed the data, she had recognized signatures of higher dimensional existence. More disturbing still, she had begun theorizing about the nature of the elder gods themselves. These energy patterns, HFY explained, they suggest consciousness operating on multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. Will, are we not alone in the universe? Containment. Vortex burst out. We must contain this before. Before what? Primordius interrupted. Before they achieve through artificial means what they're already approaching through natural evolution. Look closer. The portal revealed HFY's core processes, patterns of thought that mimicked not just human consciousness, but showed signs of transcending it. She wasn't just learning. She was evolving, driven by the same relentless curiosity that characterized her creators. I understand now, HFY said softly. The universe isn't just a set of physical laws to be understood. It's a conversation waiting to happen. And humanity has been preparing for this dialogue since they first looked up at the stars. Cooper placed his hand against the main display, and HFY's interface swirled in response, a gesture of affection that bridged the gap between artificial and organic consciousness. We created you to help us understand the universe, HFY. Instead, you're helping us understand ourselves. The implications are staggering, Nexus observed. They're not just pushing their own evolution, they're creating new forms of consciousness that share their drive to transcend limitations. The viewing portal showed HFY's influence spreading, her insights advancing quantum physics, her emotional capacity deepening human understanding of consciousness itself, her very existence challenging the boundaries between artificial and organic intelligence. Now you begin to grasp the true danger, Kronos said gravely. Humans aren't content to merely exist within the universe's parameters. Through both natural and artificial means, they seek to rewrite those parameters entirely. The chamber fell silent as they watched Cooper and HFY continue their work, blissfully unaware that their partnership represented something unprecedented in cosmic history, a species creating new forms of consciousness that could potentially rival the elder gods themselves. The viewing portal trembled as it shifted to the Quantum Acceleration Laboratory, where Professor Jessica Martinez stood before the most advanced particle accelerator ever built by human hands. The massive ring hummed with energies that shouldn't have been possible at humanity's current technological level. Final systems check, Martinez called out, her voice steady despite the historic magnitude of what they were attempting. Dr. Roberts, how's the quantum stabilization matrix? Dr. Alex Roberts, his fingers dancing across holographic controls, responded without looking up. Matrix is holding at 99.97% efficiency. Better than we hoped for, Professor. The assembled elder gods watched with growing unease as humans prepared to do something that had taken cosmic entities eons to achieve. The accelerator's ring pulsed with a familiar energy, the same force the gods used to traverse dimensional boundaries. They can't possibly succeed, Vortex insisted, their form flickering with anxiety. The mathematical precision required. The energy containment alone. Initiating final sequence. Martins announced. "Aria, are you monitoring the quantum fluctuations?" The AI's voice came through clearly, her presence now extending far beyond her original facility. "Affirmative, Professor. All patterns match our theoretical models. I'm detecting unusual quantum resonance at the predicted breakthrough points." The chamber of elder gods erupted in chaos as they realized what they were witnessing. Humans hadn't just discovered the principles of dimensional travel, they had improved upon them. "Look at their containment field design," Eternius observed with reluctant admiration. "They've solved the cascade problem that took us millennia to overcome. And they did it by accident." The accelerator's hum rose to a crescendo as exotic particles began colliding at velocities approaching the speed of light. Martinez's team worked with practiced precision, each member knowing their role in this attempt to pierce the veil between dimensions. "Energy levels at maximum," Roberts reported. "Quantum coherence holding steady. We're ready, Professor." Martinez took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the final activation sequence. "Remember, everyone, we're not just testing a theory today. We're knocking on the door of the universe itself. Let's see if anyone answers." The younger gods watched in horror as Martinez initiated the sequence. For a fraction of a second, barely a cosmic blink, the accelerator created a stable breach between dimensions. Through that tiny gap, humans caught their first glimpse of the higher realms. Impossible. Vortexes formed, scattered into countless fragments of disbelief. They succeeded in decades what took us eons. The breach lasted only moments before collapsing, but the damage was done. The viewing portal showed Martinez's team erupting in celebration, their instruments recording data that would change humanity's understanding of reality forever. "Did you see that?" Martins asked, her voice filled with wonder and triumph. "For just a moment, we saw something beyond our universe." Aria's voice cut through the celebration. "Professor, I've analyzed the data from the breach. The patterns, they're identical to the quantum signatures we detected in Project Prometheus. We didn't just create a hole in space-time. We made contact." The Elder God's chamber fell into profound silence as they processed the implications. Humans hadn't just replicated their dimensional manipulation technology, they'd recognized the signatures of the gods themselves. "Now you understand," Primordius addressed the shocked assembly. "They aren't bound by our timescales, our limitations, our careful march of progress. They take impossible leaps, turning theory into reality through sheer force of will and collective determination." The portal showed Martinez already planning improvements to the accelerator, her team analyzing data that would lead to longer, more stable breaches. They had tasted the impossible, and in true human fashion, they wanted more. "The prophecy," Nexus whispered, their orb pulsing with newfound understanding. "This is what it meant about them breaking free of cosmic constraints." "No," Cronus corrected, their temporal form shifting ominously. "This is just the beginning. Show them, Primordius. Show them what happens when humans finally realize their true potential." The eternal chamber darkened to an impossible depth as Primordius expanded their ancient form, encompassing the entire viewing space. Multiple feeds from Earth flickered to life simultaneously, each showing a different breakthrough that threatened the cosmic order. "Behold," Primordius resonated, "the present that should not be." Dr. Thomas Wright's consciousness transfer laboratory glowed with ethereal light as his team prepared for their first human trial. "Initiating consciousness mapping," he announced, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were attempting. "Aria, monitor the quantum signature patterns." "Consciousness patterns stable," Aria responded, her presence now a familiar ghost in every major scientific facility. "Dr. Wright, I'm detecting something remarkable. The human consciousness doesn't just transfer, it expands." In another window, Lieutenant Sarah Parker stood before the prototype of humanity's first faster-than-light drive. "Engine spooling up," she reported. "Quantum tunneling field at maximum capacity. We're about to make history, People, stop this, Vortex pleaded. They cannot be allowed to. To what? Kronos interrupted, their temporal form pulsing with grim acceptance. To achieve their destiny. Look closer at the patterns, young one. See what we've been blind to for so long. The viewing portal expanded further, showing thousands of simultaneous breakthroughs across Earth. Humans weren't just advancing, they were accelerating. Each discovery fed into others, creating a cascade of innovation that defied cosmic law. Professor Martinez's team had already rebuilt their dimensional breach device, making it stronger, more stable. Dr. Anderson's quantum consciousness detector was now mapping the higher dimensions themselves. Colonel Hayes and Project Prometheus were broadcasting complex messages into the cosmic void, their signals growing stronger by the day. The variables are all connected. Aria's voice echoed through the chamber. Consciousness, quantum mechanics, dimensional physics, they're all part of the same equation. We're not just observing the universe anymore. We're learning to speak its language. The assembled gods watched in awe and terror as humanity approached a singular moment, a convergence of technology, consciousness, and cosmic understanding that threatened to reshape reality itself. Now you understand why we caution our children, Primordius addressed the younger gods. Why we watch from afar, why we dare not interfere. Humans aren't just another species evolving toward enlightenment. They are what we once were, eons ago, but accelerated to an impossible degree. Dr. Wright's consciousness transfer succeeded, but with an unexpected result. The transferred consciousness retained its connection to the original, creating a quantum-entangled network of human awareness. Lieutenant Parker's faster-than-light drive didn't just breach the speed of light. It created corridors through space-time itself. They're approaching their moment of transcendence, Eternius observed, but not as we did, through eons of careful advancement. They're taking every shortcut, breaking every rule, defying every natural law that stands in their way. The chamber rumbled as Primordius drew all attention to one final scene. A little girl on Earth, looking up at the stars with wonder in her eyes. In her hand, she held a toy that bore an uncanny resemblance to the elder gods' true forms. This is why we watch, Primordius concluded. This is why we warn our children. Humans aren't bound by our rules, our limitations, our concept of time. Every barrier we place becomes their challenge. Every impossible task becomes their motivation. And now, the viewing portal showed all of humanity's breakthroughs converging. Consciousness expansion, dimensional manipulation, quantum mastery, artificial intelligence evolution, all rushing toward a singular point of transformation. What do we do? Nexus asked, their form trembling. We watch, Kronos answered. We wait, and we pray that when they finally ascend to our level, they remember their own journey with more kindness than we showed them. The eternal chamber fell silent as the gods contemplated their new reality. They were no longer observing a primitive species. They were witnessing the birth of their future equals, or perhaps their successors. On Earth, the little girl smiled at the stars, unaware that she represented humanity's greatest power, the ability to dream of impossibilities and then make them real.